So this is the sit down, and this is episode 3. And the sit down is a concept that I borrowed from some people who have much larger YouTube followings than me. And I don't want to mention their names, but shout out to those people who I follow religiously. And this is the episode 3 of the sit down. And I got a good friend from back home from Brooks County. His name is Torrence Ray Simmons. I'm going to call him Ray going forward so I don't get confused, but if I call you Torrance, then you cool with that too?
Hey, man, I'm used to both of them.
And he's here, man, to talk with us about his experiences as a professional referee. And that right there was one of the people, or at least one of the ideas around the show that I wanted to make sure I captured when I started coming up with culture and conversations. Because I thought about people like you, man. I said, man, here you are doing something extraordinary and something that's interesting, something that a lot of people don't do. And I wanted to capture those stories so that people could understand just how cool my friends are. So the first question I got for you, man, is what got you interested in doing refereeing and pursuing that as at the professional level?
Well, I'll be honest, and I go to a lot of camps, basketball camps. Money. So it started 2001 at Georgia Southern. I'm in my orientation class.
Okay.
Right, and Campus Rec, they came by CRI. If anybody went to Georgia Southern, CRI or the RAC, they came to orientation. They was like, "Hey, we having a job fair," and like both of us from Brooks County. I knew I couldn't go home to get no money.
This is true. Wasn't no money back home.
Wasn't no money back home. So it was, I need a job.
You know, let me pause you there. I remember this now. I'm remembering pieces of this because, yeah, everybody was trying to find that hustle on campus, you know, to get some money for the to go to school with.
Right. So I needed a job. So I went out that night, and it was flag football. And they had a 3-night training session. And from there, they kind of picked up people. So it was kind of like a audition. I played football, I guess rec league, midget league football. So I was familiar with football. It was kind of second nature to me. So I did. I got picked up and did pretty good. I actually went to the state tournament that year. Went to a regional tournament and kind of fell in love with it. And then from there, they asked me to do basketball for the holiday tournament that they had before the spring semester. And I never played organized basketball. If you give me a basketball, it looks very awkward when I dribble and all that. But I went out there. I had fun. It was a challenge. So that's what got me into it, just needing money. And I fell in love with it and the challenge and the camaraderie and the brotherhood and sisterhood from there.
So with that, man, at what point at your time at Southern did you begin to transition from doing recreational basketball refereeing to thinking about like, oh, I can go and do this professionally. I can go and take this from, from here on these kind of, I don't want to say pickup games, but the organized games at Georgia Southern to like, oh, I can go and now do this for leagues and I can go and do this for, on a much bigger level.
So what it started with was the extramural tournament. So Georgia Southern was well organized with the officiating and the games, whether it was football, basketball, softball, no matter what. So
sure.
You always had your intramurals or, people playing that never played or weren't currently playing for the school team. That's what the intramurals were. And then you had extramurals. So you would go on a tournament. I remember going down to Gainesville for what they call Swamp Bowl for flag football.
Okay.
For basketball, I've been as far west as Mississippi State. on an extramural tournament. I actually got my national bid from Mississippi State. I went to UNC Chapel Hill a couple of times, officiated on the court that Michael Jordan played on.
Oh, wow.
Like that's being in that arena is something different. You know, you don't think about stuff like that. But every extramural tournament, you had college level officials doing critiques, and I think that's one of the things we'll probably get into a little bit deeper later on. But people don't realize that we get critiqued all the time.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing fairly well in this. You have some schools that are kind of known for officiating on the extramural level, and I saw that I was doing good. I was well known in the extramural circuit, and I was like, I think I can do this a little bit further. Funny story about that. A guy and I, Laney Nelms, we went to a college camp for basketball.
Sure.
First time I ever went to a college camp. I paid, I think, $250 back then, maybe $300. It was a lot of money for a college student back then.
Yeah, that's several meal plans.
My first game, I make a call, and I ain't gonna call the guy's name, but he chewed me up as a clinician. I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, after that kind of thing,
Right. But it was the rest of the camp went well. I didn't get hired, but it was the challenge. It's something in you that keeps pushing you, no matter what level you want to do, high school, college, if you want to go professional. I know a couple of professional at the NBA level, a couple of officials up there. It's the challenge of getting plays right, rules right, things of that nature.
So, you know, the question I got then, man, is you said your national bid. What was that like? What when you say a national bid? What was that you're talking about?
So the intramural or extramural was kind of set up almost like the tournament, the Sweet 16, or now the playoffs in the
college football.
Where there was an organization that had a championship.
Oh, okay.
And officials were trying to get to the championship just like teams.
I got you.
So you would have to do well at a tournament to get a bid to go to maybe a regional.
Okay.
And then from a regional, you get a bid to go to national, or you may have an at-large bid. So if somebody can't make it, then you know you could move in. So at the time, they had two different organizations going. I actually had the opportunity to go to both national tournaments, one down in Orlando and the other up at Ohio University. The opportunity down in Orlando at the Disney complex, I got the championship game. That game went horrible for me, but it was a learning lesson. But on the other side, in the other organization, I actually was an All-American official.
Nice. Yeah. So how did you get trained for your first game? Like, how did that work out where you walk in and you start calling fouls and you start calling penalties? Was there any training for that?
So it's a process. My first opportunity or my first training is going to be very unique because I learned in intramurals. We had a program where they had 2 days of rules, and then they kind of showed you some things on the field, on the court, and then day 3 we moved kind of from the classroom to the field to the court, to learn a little bit more, and then we had scrimmage games.
Okay.
So you got 3 days of stuff thrown at you. And football wasn't too bad because I played, I was familiar with it. Basketball, no idea what was going on. I knew they dribbled, they dunked, they shot. That's all I knew. But I didn't know all the moving parts. I've seen, take a step back away from intramurals. I've helped train officials.
Okay.
At the high school level. Actually, this morning I was at an event for training officials, and it's real tough, especially if you played, never played, regardless, to look at the game as an official as opposed to a fan, player, or a coach. So, it's training, and then no matter how long you've been in it, you always learning.
Okay. So, what is like maybe the most exotic call you've made in a game where, it's like in the back of it's in the back of the ref manual for that game, and they were like, "What rule is this that you just called?" What's the most exotic thing you've ever called on somebody?
So in football, high school football, I'll never forget this. I was in East Georgia. I don't even know the team, but it was hurdling.
Oh yeah.
So everybody, and there's a lot of commercials on TVs of energy drinks. I ain't gonna call their name because
they ain't sponsoring Culture and Conversation.
Right.
So
we don't know how much money we got to give out. But they always show plays of high school athletes jumping over people.
That's true.
And it's illegal.
In high school, it's illegal.
In high school, it's illegal.
Because Zeke in the NFL, Zeke does it all the time for the
all
Cowboys.
All the time.
But it's not legal in high school.
It's illegal, especially if the player's on both feet. They have to be on both feet. If they have a hand or anything else on the ground, you can jump over them. But if they're on both feet standing up and you jump over a person leading with your foot or knee, that's hurdling, and that's illegal.
Is it legal in the college game to hurdle?
Depending.
Okay.
Depending. So a running back, and I may have to go back and correct this because I've given up on football.
No, it's okay.
But
okay.
I know for sure, especially in a scrimmage kick or when people are trying to kick for an extra point or a field goal, you have to be within a yard of the ball to jump over somebody and land on them.
Oh, wow.
So I know a few years back, it was an SEC team where you had the guy run up, jump over the line, block a kick. Well, they changed the rule where you have to be a yard within the ball to hurdle someone. If not, if you jump, land on somebody, even your own teammate, it's an automatic foul.
Yeah. So with your knowledge and your expertise and your experience as a referee, is it hard for you to watch professional sports?
Yes. So I don't watch the NBA at all.
Because why? Because you see stuff and you're like, that's not what the right call should have been?
So the NBA, I'll just say it like this.
Okay.
The NBA has the most talented people and officials.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to consistency of the rule, it's not about the rule, it's about the entertainment.
Oh, okay.
For instance, back in the AI days, the officials didn't like AI, and he would foul out most games.
Because they didn't like him.
And it's not an opinion. It came out because the guy that was gambling said that he would usually bet against AI because he knew the officials didn't like him.
Yeah, what's that guy's name? Tim Donahue or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, shout out to Tim out there, wherever you getting locked up at.
Hey man, I ain't getting into that now. But it's about entertainment. So to me that kind of takes away from for me the purity of the game.
So the Jordan rules were real then. Jordan rules, the LeBron rules, from your
I will say yes.
Okay.
And that is my opinion.
Yeah.
That is my opinion. As far as the rules, because oftentimes you hear nobody wants to see the best player in the game on the bench
or out the game. Yeah, that's the same thing with what we see in the NFL, where the quarterbacks and stuff, they get hit, and the play's like a bang bang play. And then they call a foul or a penalty or whatever on the player rushing the passer.
this is what I'll say about the NFL.
Okay.
The NFL, they have to protect their money, which the quarterback, for the most time, is the money maker.
He's the money, yeah. Where they invested the money in the team.
A lot of times, the quarterback is thrown to that star receiver. If the quarterback's a threat, then that star running back is amazing.
Yeah.
You have to look historically, and I think lawsuits have played a lot into that as well. But historically speaking, the way the game transformed back in like the LT days when the clothesline was legal.
Yeah.
You actually saw people body slam people,
Head slaps,
all of that, leading up to the concussions and the cover up there. They're kind of putting in a safety. Also, one thing that people don't realize, the TV does not do it justice.
Sure.
Going to a live game don't do it justice. The speed
of the game.
So to talk about that real quick, the first time I stepped on a JUCO field as a back judge, I'm 25 yards off the ball, no lie, and it was a receiver. I think he went to Georgia SEC team. They had a receiver. I took 3 steps back, 1, 2, 3, and he covered 25 yards in my 3 back steps. And I'm 25 yards off the ball.
Wow.
That's the type of speed D1 athletes that go to the NFL, that's the type of speed they have. So, yeah, you can say they're babying people, but the speed and the strength
is a whole different game.
Is a whole different game than what it was back in the day. So
Yeah.
I understand you err on the side of safety because high school I've seen kids put on like a rib guard up under their shoulder pads. These kids feel invincible.
Yeah.
So they go out there going 90 to nothing, throwing their bodies into people.
Yeah.
So I get it. The high school has put in rules. If you look at rugby versus our traditional football, rugby doesn't have pads. They tackle, but they have less concussions because they tackle properly. I think Madden hit stick ruined the game of football because everybody's looking for that big hit, and that's why like the targeting came into play, and it's cleaning the game up. And like I understand what the refs have to go through because it's a judgment call.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happened with ESPN, their coverage. They've changed how they cover the highlights. They used to have a segment on their Sunday morning show called Jacked Up. They took that out. They took that off. Time they started, people started suing over these concussions, CTE and all that stuff. They took that off, and then you see, to your point, the transition from the refereeing standpoint where they put into the game the targeting and all this stuff to try to make the game safer.
Right.
One of the things I want to ask you, man, before we kind of wrap up here is, I know that one of the things you deal with is crazy fans, people watching the game, parents, coaches and stuff. How is that? Is it as bad as I think it is, or is it maybe a little bit overblown?
I started calling back in 2001. I took a few years off in between, but it's getting worse. And I think the issue is on 3 levels. And nobody come after me when I say this. I think it starts with the parents, the coaches, and then the players. From the parents level, parents are no longer teaching kids life is not fair.
Wow.
They are hyping kids up. Basketball, that's my primary sport now. Basketball, you play year round. You have a ton of tournaments. You have exposure tournaments where you have college coaches coming in. But parents are feeding their kids that life is supposed to be perfect. Things are always supposed to go your way. And when they don't, it's somebody else's fault.
Wow.
So that's my take. And I'm not saying all parents. So before parents come after me, I'm not saying all parents.
Let me help you out with that. Any hate mail you want to send it to cultureandconversations at gmail.com.
Okay.
And we will promptly send it to the trash. Thank you very much.
Okay. The second are the coaches. I think we've come into a culture where coaches have lost the ability to train young athletes to be citizens, and more about wins. So I've seen coaches put up with all kind of attitudes from players talking back. And again, in 17 years, it went from a kid didn't say anything to their coach to a kid telling his coach pretty much to shut up. Or coaches feeding into players. Coaches are not coaching properly. If you look at the game of the NBA, like the big man is an artifact now, because you got 7-foot guys shooting threes, and that's what they do. Nobody really plays in the paint anymore. And I think it's because coaches stop coaching them. The mid-range jumper is almost a thing of the past. But coaches don't know the rules. Now, mind you, I think coaches should go through what officials go through, and officials should go through what coaches go through.
Sure.
Because I've coached varsity soccer at a private school. I've actually been ejected out of a game. That was a long story. But I understand what coaches have to deal with putting together a bunch of personalities, but also if you don't understand what's being called, or it's a rule that you don't understand
Because you don't know the game, yeah.
because you don't know the game, or you think you watch the NBA, or you've played overseas and you're coaching high school, the rule sets are different.
Wow.
The rule sets are different, and people don't realize that. A prime example, in NCAA men's, if the ball hits the backboard, nobody can go touch it.
Yeah.
NCAA and up. In high school, we don't have that.
Sure.
All it is a chance to go in above the rim, downward flight for goaltending. It has nothing to do with the backboard. So you see that play all the time, and people are yelling. In the NBA, you can't shoot a shot, not hit anything, and receive your own rebound, essentially. High school, NCAA, you can because you took a legitimate shot.
Sure.
So when plays like that happen, coaches lose their mind, sometimes end up with a tech, but they don't understand the rule set that they're coaching at the time. So I think a lot of that plays into it. And then the last one is the kids. So we know, statistically speaking, it's probably 1 to 2% from you starting out your high school team. We'll start with high school. Your high school team to making it to the NBA.
Wow.
But in the same breath, if you're good, the game don't owe you anything. From a coach, a player, and an official. And this is what I mean. Who's the gold standard in basketball? Michael Jordan, right? Everybody compares Michael Jordan, and some people may have a different opinion. Whoever you think your gold standard is that's no longer playing, did the game stop?
No, it kept on going.
It kept going.
Matter of fact, LeBron James came right behind him, right?
You got Kobe, LeBron, after they're gone, after Steph's gone, after KD's gone, the game's going to keep going. Joey Crawford, Danny Crawford, these are two officials I just named.
Steve Jabby. Yeah.
Danny Crawford retired, I want to say last year. The game didn't miss a beat.
No.
Okay? Phil Jackson retired, came back, retired. The game kept going.
Yeah.
So if kids understand that the game doesn't care about them, like you're playing this hard and with this much intensity, I understand that it's something that you love. It's a passion.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like, use this as a tool to do something else. LeBron used his money to build a school, but after he graduated, all his friends on his team went to college, and he funded businesses.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff like that. If you get a scholarship, to go somewhere for free. I don't care what you're playing, football, baseball, basketball, volleyball. I don't care what sport it is. If you can get a free education, take it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Take it because, you know, I know you said professional referee, but we're one injury away from being done. Just about every official has a second job.
Yeah.
And officiating is not their primary job because of that reason.
Yeah.
I stepped away from the game for 3 or 4 years, and the whole game changed. It didn't wait on Torrence. It didn't wait on Ray. It didn't. It changed. So when I came back in, I had to start over and do different things. So that would be the 3 things I think is wrong. And before we go, I'll tell this one story that fans have to understand. We're human. We're gonna make mistakes, but a couple of years ago, I was calling a high school football game. I'm not going to name teams or organization, but after the game, it was a tough game, went into overtime, but the issue was we know the football field is 100 yards, and it's broken up primarily into 5-yard major lines, right? Well, we have chains, and one of the protocols or one of the things that football officials have to do, we have to measure the chains against the field to make sure they're 10 yards. We went 3 different segments of 10s, and all 3 were different. So that lets me know I got a 100-yard field, and each one is not 5, or I don't have 10. So the 10 may not actually be the 10-yard.
I got you.
So as a referee, when common sense would say line to line, that's a first down. But I'm in a situation where line to line ain't 10 yards because I did my pregame duty and I know this.
And you measured it, yeah.
So it was a couple of times late in the game we had to bring the chains out, and the visiting team ended up losing. So on the way to the locker room, we had a police escort, but a woman stopped us. She looked ill. She said to me, I have cancer and I may not see another game. I want you to know you just cheated those boys out of a game.
Wow. So in her mind, she's at a football game and she's worried about, you know, instead of her being focused in on obviously her health issues, she used that to kind of try to, you know, take a crap on you. For a football game. Right.
I've had fans say, you know, he must have found out the child wasn't his and it was from the team that they were playing. Like people yell at officials, and I'm not gonna say I wasn't one of those people in high school.
Sure, we all do that.
But people say things to officials forgetting that we're human. Like
that's another level there when you start talking about cancer and babies and your family. That's a whole other level.
Like I've had fans come out the stands in a playoff game, but realizing that, you know, I have a beautiful 3-year-old, but we had some complications before I got that 3-year-old. And when you say stuff like that, I you know.
No, you want to lay hands on people. I got you.
Right.
I got you.
But, you know, I have to stay professional, but also nobody holds the players accountable. Like, I didn't make a shot attempt. I didn't miss a pass. I didn't miss a free throw.
I didn't forget to run the gas, as my coach told me, and that's why I was stepped behind everybody on the field.
All that. So, you know, we expect perfection from officials when we don't get perfection from players. So, just stuff like that.
You know, I think that's a great story, and it's a sad one, but it's believable because I know how people are, man. You know, like you said, we all go to these games and we get excited about our teams and we get passionate about the outcome, but it's just a game. But there's real people who are involved in the game,
right?
And that's where the ugliness comes in. That when you start hurting people at the expense of the game,
right?
You know. So I guess, man, you know, what's your goal, man? What's your next, you know, thing that you're working towards? What's the big brass ring for a referee or an official, and what is it that you pursue, you know, in order to get to that next thing that's a part of your career?
I want to get in a couple of more college conferences. help officials join. So everybody always asks, well, how do I join? Or how do I become a part of this? Or people who are in, how do I get better? So, just giving advice, being a mentor, giving back to officials. You can always ask a referee how you got in. They can tell you, where to go or things like that. People get big breaks from weird places, but I think I've gotten a couple of goals checked off. Like I said, I do want to get into a couple more college conferences, move up that way. If I am lucky enough to get to call a tournament at the NCAA level, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
If it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Because somebody told me a long time ago, basketball should not be in your top 3 of your life, officiating wise. It's God, family, work, and then. So just keeping that in mind. But yeah, that's where I want to go.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, I think that concludes our episode of the Sit Down, man. I appreciate you coming through, man.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. Good times, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
man.
sir.